Good afternoon. It's nice that so many of you come after lunch. It's encouraging. Great. Thank you very much on this afternoon session. It's called Gallery. We have here five very inspiring, interesting, distinguished guests from all over the world, which will share with us their stories. I was told to introduce themselves, but I am not sure if it's the right approach because they will speak about themselves. So I rather would like to give the floor them later on. And the reason of this is to hear the differences, but also maybe the things which are similar, to see the variety of the situations with which the human rights activists, freedom fighters, politicians, artists are dealing, what of the type of challenges and dangers they are facing, how they cope with it, what is the source of their energy, because often the things are not very hopeful, at least not hopeful in the near future, that you can see the outcomes and impacts and results within some time which is close, because horizon of 10 years, it's really difficult, you know, to see and to follow. I'm personally also very interested, and probably it's because I'm also activist, a former activist. During the communism, you probably are aware that the communism fall down in this country in 1989, which is 34 years ago. And I must say that it sounds strange, but at that time, it was relatively safe hobby to be activists, you know, compared to these days, because especially in this part of the world, we were, of course, facing to be captured, little bit beaten, maybe kicked out from the university, getting wet during the demonstrations. But the generation of my parents were facing imprisonment, but at the end of 80s, it was about a year or two, not anymore 5 years, like in the beginning of the hard time of communism after the Soviet invasion, and not about the charges 10, 15, 20 years, which were normal during the Stalinism. So it was basically kind of a bit risky, but you know, full of the energy and adventure type of the activity. Compared to what's happening now, I would say that I'm almost ashamed how easy it was for us at that time. And who knows why? Probably because since that so many wars happened, the world shown that, you know, the world order is weaker and weaker, that the rules which were somehow working still during the Cold War fall apart. And we can see it last few years that the violence and brutal force and killing the people, it's more and more used by the different countries, groups, authoritarian dictators. Such a wave, for example, of the protests which started in Belarus after the manipulated presidential elections 3 years ago, it would normally lead up to the fall of the authoritarian. And in fact, this was opposite. Authoritarian used brutal force. The Russian instructors came from Kremlin, and they basically were so brutal that they pushed the civil society and activists back. We can see what's happening in Iran last year and something. So it is much more risky and tough job than it was 30 years ago. And with that, I would like to pass the floor to Sandra Zenda from Zimbabwe. She was volunteering to start to share her story. Please, Sandra.
Thank you so much, Simon. So I think I actually do have quite a huge task. It's something that is so difficult, trying to talk about your personal story, your life story in 8 to 10 minutes. But I will do my very best to stick to 8 to 10 minutes, and kindly nudge me a little bit if I go over 8 to 10 minutes.
You have the time.
Thank you so much. So my name is Sandra Zenda. I am from a country in Southern Africa that is called Zimbabwe. I identify as a human rights defender, more specifically a women's rights defender. And I'm very much honored today to be sitting with very brave human rights defenders from across the world. It honestly is an honor. And then back to myself, honestly, if asked to describe myself, I don't think I would call myself brave. Even with everything that I do, I would not call myself brave. If I was asked to summarize the work that I do, everything that I do, actually it's not work, it's my life. I would basically say that I fight to live, not just to survive, but to live. I grew up with dreams, just like everyone. And unfortunately, I have been in situations in an environment whereby if you do not get to fight, your dreams will remain just that, dreams, and they don't get to materialize. So basically, everything that I do is just for me to get to live. This is about my life. So basically, that should be my story. And then maybe just to give a very brief background in terms of where I'm coming from so that you can probably see where it is that I'm going, where it is that I am right now. My personality, as I was born, I'm very quiet in nature. I would rather take a big seat than go to the front at any given time. That is me. And naturally, given that, I did choose a profession that actually suits that character. I am a natural resources governance by profession, and I actually did my academic training in wildlife and safari management and also climate and water resources management. So that was me. I was very much comfortable in that space. I'm working with wildlife, I'm working with nature. Nature doesn't speak, wildlife doesn't speak. I speak for them through science, through research, and then I just produce policy briefs, etc., recommendations. I've worked in private, public institutions in my country, and I've also gone on to work at national level, policy making, a National Water Resources Master Plan commissioned by the World Bank in my country. So that is something that is very big. I'm working on a national master plan for a whole country that are supposed to run for around 20 years. That is just an example. It's also related to most of the other areas that I worked in. That is where I also began to notice a lot of things that were happening, especially looking at the issues of inclusion. That project, it had 12 experts who were supposed to be working in different areas related to water. And within that project, in the end, it was only 2 of us who were women, and we were also younger than 35. No, that is a crime, no. It's only that there were a lot of people who wanted to do that, who wanted to contribute. And then I know the value of self-representation. So things that have got such a large scale, I know the importance of self-representation of the very different groups that we have in that country. So I had a lot of struggles, and at the end of the day, during that project and many other projects that I did, one thing that was very much apparent was that I had to fight a lot of things. I had to prove myself able and capable of the things that I knew that I was actually capable of doing. But I had to go an extra mile just to prove myself that I can do this, despite being a woman, despite being young. And most of the times, actually, I would get a handshake, and people would actually get to know that I could do it after finishing the project and not at the start of a project. So that made me to realize that there is only so much that I can do if the space is not inclusive. There is only so much that I can do. Fine, I did make it, and I got to have a seat at the table. but at a cost. And then I also realized that there were people like me, other young women, also especially women from marginalized communities. They remained where I was before I got to prove myself. So in the end, it was not that, it's really not fun when you see people of your kind, people you relate with, not getting where you know they want to be, but there are lots of barriers. So that made me to make a very conscious decision whereby I decided to leave that space where I was very much comfortable in. So I joined civic society. I joined the women's rights movement in Zimbabwe, specifically working with women from marginalized rural communities, because that was the group that I most related with. And I knew that for me to actually be happy there, I needed to have someone that I made a contribution to in terms of being inclusive. So within that women's rights movement, basically what I did, I do not put words into the mouths of people. No, that would not be okay. But what I do is I raise awareness, I educate where education is needed. I work with and I accompany people so that at the end of the day, then they are able to take action. But my starting point always is the legal policies, the legal framework that we have, starting from international laws, basic human rights, but also even laws within our country. We have got a very good constitution in Zimbabwe that is if you just look at it on paper, you would actually think that human rights are actually observed in that country, and you would actually think that we have got gender equality, we have no problems. But then when you get on the ground in terms of implementation, it's a very different story. And one of the things that has led to that is the issue of, I would have said ignorance, but I would say it's not just about ignorance. Yes, there are some people who have a chance to know but don't make the effort. But then again, I have heard something that has actually been quite big in my country, especially when you're looking at marginalized communities. That's misinformation and disinformation that is deliberate because of someone who has a certain agenda. So what I do is to clarify and to talk about what is our own laws as a country. That is basically what I just do. Movement building, I accompany people, activate the agency, communities, young women and women speak for themselves. But unfortunately, whilst just doing that thing, which should be a simple thing actually, that is where I have been facing a lot of challenges. One, first of all, because of a lot of dynamics that are in my country, I get to be labeled as the opposition, siding with agents of regime change, even though I am just talking about the constitution that we have, just working with the people, and then I'm accused of wanting to start a movement of people who are anti-state or government, etc. So I have faced a lot of challenges, one of that being the issue of surveillance wherever you go. You are under surveillance. You actually have to select where you stay with. You have to pay a lot of attention to detail because you know anything can go wrong. So you have to think twice in terms of where you stay. You also have to think twice in terms of the family that you can keep close because it's either you are targeted or the family around you because of that. So paying special attention in terms of where you go, even when you're going to work. I've had to schedule and reschedule my days in terms of the routes that I use because of that targeting. I've also had situations of arbitrary arrests. You are arrested. The police, they spend about 7-8 hours thinking of a charge after they've arrested you. You are in the cells, but they don't have anything concrete to charge you with. They are busy going over whatever legal policies, issues, what. They are thinking of what to charge you with, but they've already arrested you. A year going to the courts, you are going there. There is no concrete evidence, just persecution. And then I see my time is about to be up. So I will not go much into a lot of the challenges that I faced, but trust me, it's a lot of challenges that I have faced, not just me, but also the movement that I work with because of just that situation whereby you have got laws, but implementation is something else. And there is a system that actually preys on I wouldn't want to use ignorance. That plays on, the misinformation, disinformation. So like they don't want people to know when they know that person whom they think is making people to know you are targeted. So that's a lot of challenges. But now in closing, I'll just speak to what makes me to continue, because I have continued and I'll continue because I want to live. I don't want to just exist. First of all, I have got family that supports me, a partner who supports me, who has stood with me in jail, him outside there, just basically showing that I will support you no matter what, because they also respect my dream, my desire to live and not just to exist. And also the very movement that I work with, I am arrested, first of all, because I am the leader, I am the coordinator, so I am the point of contact. I get to be arrested. But the most important thing is that they stand with me, the solidarity. It remains my source of strength. There are a lot of things that have happened, including, actually, I missed my wedding day when I was in jail. But that movement, it stands with me. And also not forgetting the international community. I'm part of the World Movement for Democracy, part of other networks that have actually stood with me. You know, sometimes even just a post on Twitter showing solidarity, that noise that everyone makes, it actually has quite a lot of bearing, especially when your case is being heard before the laws. This makes me to continue despite everything, and also because I want to live, and I also want generations before me and after me to live as well. Thank you, Simon.
Oh, well, thank you, Sandra. It was very comprehensive. Thank you very much. If I may continue, Dolkun Issa is an activist, politician, working from outside of his own country, president of the World Uyghur Congress, one of the nations which we often heard being under the pressure of the probably biggest industry of surveillance and oppression of the rights for the decades, able to oppress the rights not only of groups and organizations and individuals, but oppress the rights of the tens and tens of millions of people in the different part of the country. We are talking about China and about, of course, Uyghur situation in China. Please, Dolkun.
Well, thank you, Simon. Well, I'm Dolkun Issa. I'm the activist and also so-called terrorist by the Chinese government. I'm the number 3 top terrorist of the Chinese list. So oppressive regime make you as a criminal or terrorist over the night. 2003, 15th of December, I woke up next day, Chinese government called me the terrorist, and official issues a list. So despite I living in free world, and I have been to feel and imprisoned in my much in my lifetime, and despite of I'm in a democratic countries, European citizen, German citizen, and which country is protects human rights, democracy, rule of law, but I have been a subject, and I have been attacked, I have been deteriorated, questioned, and destroyed my dignity, so on. Well, I really don't know, and how did I become such a number 1 enemy of such a gigant countries? I still struggle with this question, still. But however, I have some answer for this. I start my activism when I was student's time, 1980s. Maybe, as Simon said, today Chinese governments and is turn whole region, East Turkestan, Uyghur land, homeland is and open air prison, surveillance system, and 3 million people are suffering in concentration camp. Uyghur are subject to the forced labor. More than 1 million children separate from family. This all atrocity happening today, even this hours. But this discrimination was not new, because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, nearly no one who's the Uyghurs. What's happening? Yeah. So, but this discrimination against the Uyghurs, against the Tibet, and the Chinese government's discrimination policy, assimilation policy against Uyghurs, Tibet, and some other is all the time exists. Today, my good friend, former Prime Minister of Tibet government exile, Lobsang Sangay, Dr. Lobsang Sangay is here. We are witness, we are first-hand witness of this. But institutions since 2014, Xi Jinping took the power, dramatically changed assimilation and the discrimination policy into genocidal policy. Yes, this region. So 1980s when I was a student, and I set up one students club, a students cultural scientist union. Main purpose is educated of people because 75–80% of the Uyghur population are analphabetic, illiterate, because no school most of the place. So
at that time.
Yes, that time, yeah. So, and 1,000 Uyghur students, and during the summer holiday, winter holiday, spend of time staying at home, sleeping, or waste of time. Then I thought we mobilize these Uyghur students during the summer holiday, winter holiday, voluntarily teaching all people alphabet and the teaching Chinese constitution, the autonomous region, so-called autonomous region, autonomic law, what kind of right we have to educate all people. This is the main primary aim of the organization. But we really start this activism, we have no space. Even Chinese government, Chinese Communist parties, central committees also have a policy is educate to the people. But we are really trying to start the activism. And face a lot of barrier. We cannot. Then I understand that time. This constitution is autonomic law just on the paper. In the reality, Chinese government doesn't want increasing the education of the Uyghur people. Yeah. So 1988, 15th of June, I led more than 8,000 students, and we hold big demonstration. Yes. We demand democracy, democratic election. We demand equality, equal right. Because when I was a student, Xinjiang University, biggest university, this region, and there is a Chinese students, Uyghur students, some other minority students, but in educational level, we have faced a lot of discrimination. You know, we don't have a book, for example. You know, we have a laboratory we cannot access any time, but Chinese students can access any time. So we went to the street. We need to stop this discrimination. We demand equality, democratic election, and also with demand stop nuclear testing, because Chinese government implemented 46 times nuclear testing, atomic test to the Uzbekistan, this area. 100,000 people died because of this, in fact, because only 100 kilometers far from this testing area, in habitable area. So, and a lot of disease, a lot of children born disabled. So this is not the mind. But because of this, I was kicked also from the university. I was house arrested. Up to 4 months later, I was kicked also university. I was not able to graduate to the university. Then 1994, I went to the exile. When I came to the exile, I trying to raise this awareness to the international platform, United Nations, European institutions, everywhere. But China is a powerful country. Then put my name to the Interpol, red notes. I had a red notes 21 years. Because of this red notes, I was detained in my own country, Germany, a couple of hours. I was detained in front of the United Nations during the Human Rights Council section in Geneva. I was detained in Italy. I was detained even in the United States. When I was entered, I had a passport, everything is the international Dallas airport. I was detained after 23 hours. I was sent back to Germany. 2009, I was detained 4 days in South Korea, in the Seoul airport. I had faced to deport to China. Finally, in the US State Department, European Union, German Foreign Ministry used last card and they saved my life and they sent me back to Germany. Yeah. Yes, but I never lost my hope because I'm an activist. It is my skill, have to work. Finally, 2018, February, my red notes was delayed. I had not any more red notes. I'm not a terrorist by the Interpol, but Chinese government continue believing me as a terrorist. Still a crime. Not only me, all Uyghurs. Today, 3 million Uyghurs are suffering concentration camp at this moment too. Because China say we are fighting terrorism and radicalism. 2015, Chinese government adopted counter-terrorism law, and the 1st of January 2016 implemented this law. Now is more than 3 million people and are suffering from this. Yeah, so of course, no, I entered the United States. 2006, I was deported to Germany because I'm a terrorist, suspicion a terrorist. But 2016, I got Human Rights Award in the Capitol Hill. 2019, I and my organization, World Uyghur Congress, get World Democracy Award by the Capitol Hill. Now, some country we got, and even 2023, this year, we are nominated Nobel Peace Prize. Unfortunately, we cannot get it. Good thing is Nargis Mohammed, she got Iranian activist, is good. But still, Chinese government use this term and attack to the all. And the being activist, as you said, is not easy globally. But particularly being activist among them, Uyghur, Tibetan, Hong Kong is not easy. You know, Chinese government immediately blames the label. Uyghur, we doing this? You are terrorist. In my entire life, I have never killed any chicken. You know, I have never seen a real gun, a bomb. I just saw in the movie, but I'm the top terrorist still on the Chinese list. And any Tibetan activist is a separatist. Immediately, yes. Now it's Hong Kong is coming to this level. And we have all witnessed in the Hong Kong's democracy is disappeared in front of all. Yeah. So, but we never lost hope. We continue doing our activism. Now, and the 11 national parliament, one of the Czech Senate, recognized Uyghur genocide motion. United States, Canada, UK, French, Lithuania, European Parliament, United States, this all recognized Uyghur genocide. And also, more than 50 countries last year is UN Human Rights Council section made joint statement. This is big achievement. 10 years ago, I could not enter this building. I cannot talk in front of you. But today, I'm honored to be talking here. So activism very important. We never lost the hope. We fight it, but we stand up fighting terror and authoritarianism. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolkun. Well, what a different story, you know, being asylum seeker, getting citizenship in Europe, traveling, meeting the governments, but still being in danger that someone can send you back to China until recently, you know. It required a lot of courage, basically. You could stay in Germany and live the ordinary life, but you risk for 15, 20 years, you know, traveling. And unfortunately, the strong countries, China, Russia, you know, people in it is active also in the former Soviet Union. And we were doing for a years the things in Chechnya. We were kicked out 2005, which is 18 years. But still, they are trying somehow to dig back and find the people to try to fabricate the story that we were supporting terrorists in Chechnya. And it takes 18 years, you know, and we know that they are still making occasionally pressure on our former employees, offering money, blackmailing them to play this game, you know. So it's not only China, it's, and unfortunately, stronger government, stronger voice, because the global order, it's theoretically more fair. It's not that dominated by US and Europe, but in reality it's less safe and less predictable, and there is less space for basic freedoms and human rights these days. So let's see where it will go. With that, I will pass the floor to Veysel Ok from Turkey, and again, completely different story, but please.
Yeah, Thank you very much for this event. Yeah, complete different story, but when I hear the, for example, Uyghur story, yeah, we have similar things also. I can say more than 5% of our population in Turkey has a terror investigation. This is the similar things between maybe Uyghur things. I want to introduce myself first. I am Veysel Ok, based in Istanbul. I'm a lawyer since 17 years, and I am supporting journalists, activists, artists who has freedom speech problem in Turkey. And we established Media and Law Studies Association in Turkey after coup attempt. In 2016, we had coup attempt. One Islamic group tried to make coup, and then they failed. But we became happy, of course. But after the coup attempt, we woke up different country. Like in the one night, 5,000 judge and prosecutor, they lose their job, and they arrested. In the one night, hundreds lawyers, they arrested. In the one night, hundreds journalists, they arrested. In the one night, more than 400 television and newspapers shut down. Many websites shut down. Many union is closed. So we established our organization because we couldn't arrange to support journalists, activists, and artists in Turkey. Now we became biggest freedom speech organization in Turkey. We are supporting more than 150 journalists and also activists, also artists. Yes, still we have 41 journalists in prison. Still Turkey is the, maybe many people won't agree to me, Turkey is not part of Europe, but Turkey is part of Europe. Turkey is founder of the European Council. Before the Czech Republic, Turkey is accept European Human Rights Court power since 89, sorry. But now, after coup attempt, Turkey lose the way. We are belong to which part of the world? We are belong to Europe, or we are belong to Russia, China bloc. So we try to decide, or state or population try to decide we are belong to which part of the world. Still, Turkey biggest jail for journalists, for activists, for artists, for politicians in Europe, unfortunately. But still, I can say there is huge opposition, there is huge NGO, there is huge women movement in Turkey. They are fighting against the authoritarian regime and their actions. In Turkey, what is changing after coup attempt? Still, for example, we have huge Kurdish problem. We have 20 million Kurdish in our country. They cannot go school their language. They have no right. We have 7 million refugees from the other part of the world, from Syria, from Afghanistan, from Uyghurs, from Iran, from other countries. And we have deal with European Union. Turkey is also prison for refugees. The European Union, European Council, giving the money, Turkey, okay, protect the borders. Refugees cannot pass to Europe. What you can do inside of Turkey. This is one of the biggest problem. Yes, we have authoritarian regime. We are every day we are becoming more authoritarian, but also Europe let us this. This is the other problem. Because of there is huge cries in Europe about refugees, and Turkey is prison for them. Like millions Syrians, millions Afghans, they have no right in Turkey. They are working cheap workers, and they cannot travel. They cannot go Europe, they cannot go America, they cannot go this other country. Why? Because of the European Union deals. This is I think, one of the biggest problem in Turkey about democracy. Europe doesn't care like before because the refugees are more important than democracy. I can add the other things. We have two important cases at European Human Rights Court. One is Osman Kavala. Maybe someone knows about him. He is the biggest one of the biggest important activists and human rights activists in Turkey. He is a businessman. He got life sentences. We got decision from European Human Rights Court 2 times. Turkey don't accept. Another case is Selahattin Demirtas. He is a pro-Kurdish opposition leader. He is in prison, and he has also European Human Rights Court decision, release them. In the decision they wrote, release them as soon as possible. But Turkey don't accept, and last week, European Council Parliamentary Assembly had meeting about this 2 decisions, and Turkey will lose the vote right in the next feature, until January. If they don't release, Turkey will lose the vote right in the Parliamentary Assembly, and this is the first time after 40 years ago, 40 years before, there was coup in Turkey, the army controlled Turkey. That time we lose our vote right, and now we could lose again. And unfortunately, still the Turkish government won't accept this decision from European Human Rights Court, the decision from European Council. And this is not only our problem, by the way, this is a European problem. So we should fix together with European country, with European Council. Yeah, but I have hope because Turkish democracy still grew up. I have hope Turkish opposition still grew up. I have hope Turkish women right. I think women movement. I think one of the biggest women movement in Europe. LGBT movement Turkey is so strong. Kurdish movement is so strong. So we have hope. What we cannot do this alone. We need support. We need solidarity with the European partners. The refugees problem, I can understand, is a big problem for Europe, but this cannot be for democracy. You cannot choose this problem. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. Well, it's clear that the challenging voices often are not welcome again and again. So that's also a new trend, that what we can do here in Europe freely challenge the government and get together, and we are even getting support of media and public and people. It's in more and more countries starting to be difficult, if not impossible. So thanks a lot for sharing and for your work. With that, we move to the completely other side of the world, to Latin America, and I would like to ask Cecilia Requena Zarate from Bolivia, to share her view, because you are active politician sitting in the assembly, but in the same time, part of your life it's dedicated to the human rights and freedom. So please, floor is yours, Cecilia.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank for the invitation. It's an honor to be here and with you all. My solidarity, because what we are hearing are really moving stories. Yes, I come from Bolivia, and I'm sure most of you know something about my country, maybe Evo Morales as the former president. And well, it's important to mention this because he gained such international popularity because he was conceived as the first indigenous president from Bolivia. Indigenous people are a very important portion of Bolivia's population. And it is true that it had been, discrimination problem, colonialism, and everything left a history of, exclusion. And also, Evo Morales was very well known for his discourses for Mother Earth and Pachamama, and that's also important. Nevertheless, all these things which are important, even inclusion in my country, when he came to power in 2006, developed differently because there was not authentic democratic will from the part of Evo Morales and his party. So they began to dismantle already fragile democratic system in Bolivia by controlling, as you already know, the Venezuelan story or Nicaraguan story is beginning to control the power of the judiciary and then the electoral power and the legislative, and many of those things were supported by majorities, and this is complicated because you could say the democratic vote is behind these decisions, but in the end, this democratic vote is promoting the dismantling of democratic institutions. So we end up, as we are today, like 18 years afterwards, with one party all the time in government. And, well, now this party is divided, but I won't go into details right now. But I wanted you to understand that this has done a lot of damage in Bolivia. The democratic institutions really are left to minimums. We can talk about authoritarian competitiveness, competitive authoritarianism. We have elections, but we are not sure if the results are there. Even in 2019, you may have heard about a fraud that was committed in order for Evo Morales not to go to the second round. As I was before that, just an activist, as an ecologist. And then, but I was also a teacher at the university, and many of the civil society decided to get into this election in 2019 in order to stop Evo Morales because he didn't have the right to run for president again. Our constitution forbids it. In 2016, he organized a referendum asking the population, may I change the constitution in order to be re-elected? And the majority of the people in Bolivia said no. But then he used the constitutional court to say that it was, quote, his human right to run again. So he ran again in 2019, and then fraud was committed. The Organization of American States established that, and then Evo Morales resigned and escaped to Mexico before, he didn't wait the assembly to accept his resignation, so he left my country in chaos. Some days, the dangers of a civil confrontation were really big. But then we found a way forward with the second vice president from the assembly. She was from the opposition in power. She assumed the presidency for an interim term, which was supposed to be for a few months, but then the pandemia, the COVID came, so it was a long year ago. This person, Janine Áñez, is in jail right now in my country because the argument that she committed a coup in spite of this being a solution supported even from the assembly, which was dominated by MAS, the Evo Morales party. They voted to not want two laws in order for the country to move on and to organize new elections in 2020, which happened. We lost. But, okay, so as you can see, we have big problems now. The MAS party is again in power, but not Evo Morales. He couldn't run again, but his Minister of Financing. So we have 200 political prisoners in Bolivia right now. And this is not a very well-known story, right? And this is why it is important to tell it here. I have the opportunity. I would also comment some other human rights problems in my country. They have to do with extractivism, which is a colonial phenomenon. We are a mining country from colonial times. But now this has worsened because of the difficult democratic conditions. Can you please tell me when I have 2 minutes, because I don't see the okay, thank you. So mining is a big problem, especially gold mining in the Amazonas region right now. Maybe you have heard about Venezuela and Peru. That's also happening in Bolivia right now, with some differences, and I would like to mention just two of them, because this has everything to do with human rights. A lot of what is forbidden in other countries because it's so damaging to the common good is legal in Bolivia thanks to a law approved while Evo Morales was president. Why? Because they gain power and support by just giving up our natural resources to, broad-based, that's true, broad-based organizations like mining, cooperative mining, cooperatives, right? But this is an ecological disaster, but also an ethnical disaster. So it is so much damaging. It's legal right now, and they are destroying the Amazon basin. And they are using mercury, without the state control. The state steps back and just allows everything to happen. And this is causing a genocide, an ethnocide, for indigenous people from the Amazonas region, which are being intoxicated. Thank you. So that's a problem, as you can see. And this gold mining problem, which is part of extractivism, is connecting itself with criminal economies like narco-trafficking and others. And why is this happening? Well, why doesn't the state do something? Because it allows them to stay in power. It's a very dangerous game, They allow these things to happen because they gain popular support by just letting these things happen. So, as a closing statement, I would like to mention that we don't see enough. We don't visualize enough the problems of these states that, without the help of transnationals, for instance, can damage their own countries. So we tend to talk about companies, international companies, which is an important issue, but we don't visualize at the same time how states can be so damaging for their own population. And the second thing is how dangerous it is to destroy nature in this century. And we are now suffering from a drought. So if you connect climate change with all this destroying of the source of rain, which is the Amazon basin, you can understand how our countries will be systemically disturbed ecologically, economically, socially, and politically. So that's another idea I would like to share with you. And if I have 30 seconds, just to mention, this is dangerous. I am a senator right now, and I myself because I went to the region, I don't have the time to tell more, but I was almost kidnapped because of that. I said, I'm being a senator, I'm not safe. My state is not able to protect me from these gold mining bans or narco-trafficking bans that are also trafficking with humans and women and all those things. So big problems, and I'm also an activist, so we are used to adversity, we are used to fighting. We know this is a long life, it's a lifetime compromise, commitment, sorry. And it's not easy, but we have to be able to fight and to stand up for these injustices and systemical problems from our countries.
Yep. Thank you. It's striking, and it's not, of course, for the first time, but it's again and again repeated, especially in the middle-income countries and some developing countries where a lot of people are poor and disparity is high, how the, basically nice leftist ideas are used for politics, including a lot of the rhetorics, but then under the surface in reality there is a cynicism, a lot of corruption, exactly the kind of a joint venture between the government and the companies, and the governments basically allow them to do anything because they are getting money, and a lot of people vote, in fact, with hope that it will bring some better distribution of the wealth, but the reality is different. So it shows how false it's, but unfortunately it works. This mythological rhetorics that the human rights and democracy is a Western European or US agenda. In fact, it shows how often the politicians, regardless which ideology they use, they can move to the wrong side, and that's unfortunately fascinating that a lot of people still believe in this, fairy tale, vote for us because we will make better life for you. And we still remember it from communist countries, The generation of my grandparents probably also believed mostly in the better future, in 80 years ago. With that, let me to move to Badiou Cao, the Chinese, but unfortunately his second home is Australia, artist, activist, thinker, someone from slightly different angle of how you can address the things which are wrong, but I think it will be very inspiring as well. Please.
Thank you. It's an honor to be invited to this forum. I'm Badiou Cao. I'm a political artist focused on the human rights issues, majorly about China, but also about other countries. Because of the work that I do, I believe I might share the same list of the most not welcomed individual by the Chinese government with Mr. Issa here. I want to start with my story actually from an incident that happened about 2 years ago in China, during China is still under this very severe COVID lockdown. I hope people are still remembering COVID and still remembering all the tragedy that created by this global catastrophe. And it's originated in China, and it started because the Chinese government's censorship, coverage on reporting and warning the public and international society earlier. But I want to bring the angle back to China a little bit. During this peak of lockdown back in Shanghai, one of the richest cities in China, that constantly people are being forcing to be locked at home, forcing to have COVID tests. There's so many inhumane activities happening to China's own citizens. And there is this family back in China with a young guy. One day, his door got knocked by a group of police and enforced him to do some kind of test. And when he said no to the police because he think, enough is enough. The police said, if you do not collaborate with us, you are not going to be the only one, you're not going to be the only generation who pay this price. We will punish your parents and we will punish your children's generation as well because you do not collaborate with the government. And this young man gave a very powerful yet heavy answer. He said, you won't have the opportunity to punish my next generation because I am going to be the last generation. This is the voice from the younger generation of China. And I feel very much identified with this generation, the last generation. But I also want to say this is not the last generation of China, but the last generation who will choose to be silent and continuing suffering from this regime. But we want to make a difference. I am born actually in an artistic family. My great-parents were the first group of filmmakers in China. They were very active in the 1930s until 1950 when China's Communist Party is in power. They thought, because they have a very successful career, that my grandpa and his brother would survive this regime, regardless of the change. But they were wrong. because of their film that produced after the regime take the power, which is not 100% aligned with the propaganda rules of the Chinese Communist Party. My grandpa been sentenced to a forced labor camp in the far west of China, and he eventually died there because of hunger and sickness. My family never retrieved any of the remains of his body or even object. We just have a noticement saying, this man has died. And this revenge, this tragedy did not just stop. It continues. Then my dad became an orphan very soon because grandma passed away several years after grandpa passed away. And my father was referred as son of dog because he was born in this same family, anti-revolutionists, as they call it. My father was stripped away from his opportunity to go to university, and because of political family background. And I do believe this kind of experience is not unique just to China, but actually sharing a lot with the people in the generations here, where we're all under the Soviet Union communist regime. But the difference is some countries find a path to reform, to find the key of democracy. Yet some country, like my country, China, went to a much darker force. And this tragedy continues to my generation. So when I'm showing my interest in art, my family don't want me to be an artist. They say, but it's how it's so dangerous, you know, we don't want you to repeat what happened to your grandpa. You can be a barber, you can be a sheriff, you know, but don't be an artist because it's too dangerous. But for me, it's not the case. As every teenager grow up, you don't listen to your parents, and even for the Chinese teenage. So I decided to choose a different path. So I decided to embrace art. But I know if I made this path for my life, I can't stay in China. With so many references that happened to my own family, happened to many other artists, that I know if I choose to make art, one day, one moment, I might pass the unforgivable red line, and I will repeat the tragedy of my family. So that brings me leave China and resettle in Australia. But apparently, I am underestimate the very long arm of this totalitarian regime, China. There's no guarantee for safety, even when you are thousands of miles away from China. I'm very confident that my friends from the Uyghur community and my friends from the Tibetan community knows this much better. And this is also applied to the Chinese citizen. I don't believe the Chinese government is seeing us as individual, the human being. We're being seen as a property, which belong to them, which they can punish and take back whenever, wherever. So I know these risks, and I know if I want to protect myself, I have to find a way. So when I started to making art and post my political art on social media and exhibiting, I choose to be anonymous. Because I know if they know my identity, it will not just me to be punished, but my family back in China, my friends, everybody that I'm close with, I loved, will become the object for the Chinese government to punish. I managed to hide myself for about 7 years. But in 2018, the Chinese government found out my identity. Immediately, they took my relatives to the police station. My relatives who have no idea that I'm an artist, they're talking about human rights in China. But regardless, they're being taken to the police station, interrogated, questioned for things they don't know. And the Chinese government have a very simple demand. We want this artist Bao Cao stop making art, stop having exhibition. Otherwise, as their quote, there'll be no mercy to me, nor to my family. So after that, I have to make a decision. Should I continue or do I give up? In the end of the day, we have to understand regime like China is indeed like a terrorist regime. They do not forgive, they do not forget. You cannot You can never exchange your freedom for safety. And if you do so, you lose both. And that's also something I believe deeply. So for me, I decided continuing making art, but also showing my face, showing my identity now, to tell the Chinese government that I am not afraid of them, that they can do whatever they want, but I choose the path that I believe in, which is embrace the free spirit as an artist. So now all the attack and harassment become more personal. Even though I'm an Australian citizen now, I live in Melbourne, I got followed by a Chinese agent there. I get possible home invasion. I have to talk to the National Security Police in Australia time to time. When I finally have exhibition opportunity in Europe, like the one that I have in the docks here a year ago in Prague, the Chinese embassy continually threatening to shut down the exhibition. They even find the private number, cell phone number, of the curator from the Docks Contemporary Art Center and calling her, demanding the show to be cancelled. Recently, I toured the show in Poland and in Warsaw, and this time the Chinese embassy actually came in person to the museum. Same thing, demanding the show to be cancelled. It's a power play, it's a powerful gesture. But what they are trying to do is not just take away my rights. It is also an invasion to the sovereignty and rights for the people to appreciate freedom of art locally here, in Czech, in Poland, in Italy, in Europe, in the entire world. And that is the essence of the Chinese government methodology, to make people afraid of it. Now let's have a look at China. I think it's really in a terrible situation. We've seen unspeakable crime that have been committed against the Uyghur community, to Tibetans, to the Hong Kongers, and to its own people, to the Chinese. During the COVID lockdown, so many people lost their livelihood, and now the entire economy of China is suffering, and China is literally going to this Asian society stage, which partially because one-child policy for decades, but also my generation do not feel the confidence to raise babies in this insecure society anymore. And this embed a very serious consequence. That is the collapsing or slowing down or the dying of the Chinese economy. But in the same time, with the Chinese dictator Xi Jinping, he has been illustrated his ambition to the world that he want to be this strong man. He want hand in hand with Putin, supporting his Ukraine invasion, but also he want to start his own invasion against Taiwan. And this is something that troubles me all the time, that keep me awake. We don't want to be the last generation who suffer from a new world war, even though so many signs has shown. We want to be the last generation that will collaborate with oppressive regime like this, and we want to be the first generation that say no to it and change it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a little bit of time only, so let me to, and please the answer should be really quick, like half a minute, 1 minute. Let me to ask, do you have the hope that the things will get better soon? And what's the source of your hope or stubbornness or of your readiness to your commitment to continue?
Yeah. I have hope. If I have not hope, I won't work anymore as a lawyer, or I won't establish my NGO. But the main problem is you cannot work and fight alone. This is the most important things. World is global, and human rights also is global. The authoritarian regime are friend in the world. But the Democrats still not together as I want. This is the main problem. We should support each other more, and we should meet more. No one can change their country alone because of the global world. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yes, I have hope, but also the need to do something because the consequences are so serious. I mean, if you and understand the dangers, the additional dangers for us for losing completely what the little we have from democracy. But then we add these new problems, as I was talking about. Well, the challenge is so big that, you know, not doing anything, it's not an option. It's not an ethical option. The only option we have is to do something, to try to do something. And I completely agree with coordination. And I'm going to say one last thing. I didn't have the time to talk about how China influences my country, as so many countries in the world. I mean, maybe all the countries in the world, but also Iran and Venezuela and Russia, and all those things are coordinated. And we have to understand that, and I think plus Turkey, yeah, but that's okay. So we really have to be able to look at the interconnections, not only of countries, but also of issues like technology, ecological collapse or problems, and all democratic problems and all those things, and to be able to work in such a manner to be able to confront the size and the complexity of the challenges we have ahead.
Yes, indeed. It's, you know, we hope that with globalization will come openness and exchange between the people and more education and the free flow of informations and ideas, but unfortunately the dark side also realized that it's good to have a global connections and support each other, and they are very, I would say, very active in that last 10, 15 years. So many meetings between the different authoritarians and dictators around the globe. Yeah.
For me, I think it's very important that we always believe in people's potential to change. I think there always has been this stereotype that against certain people from oppressive regimes, and saying, you know, it's because, well, let's say the Chinese culture is different, the Chinese understanding is different, so they cannot coexisting with democracy. And in fact, according to the Chinese government, the narrative will always be the Chinese people need an emperor or strongman, and that is why that the Chinese government is providing this service. I always like to challenge this notion that seeing that some people, whether it's from China or from any other region, is restricted and it's set, it's frozen, cannot be moved. I think it's very, very important that we see the common ground of human being. That's also the foundation that why we believe in universal human rights, is we also have the universal potential to change, to embrace a brighter future. And that's something I think gives me hope constantly.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's kind of really irritating explanation. You know, our people, our part of the world is different, and it's interesting that if you ask the people on power, authoritarians, they say, of course, no, we can't, you know, introduce full-fledged democracy and all the freedoms because our people are not ready for that. But if you ask the people, if they want to say who is ruling them and how the budget is, you know, spent and who is making the decisions, of course people say, of course we want to influence it because it's influencing our lives. So it's and even the politicians from Europe are sometimes dealing with the politicians in the non-free countries and adopting some of these you know, explanations. Dolkun, what's your engine?
Yes. Of course, and we never give up the hope. Yes, and the human being have seen horrible regimes so far. For example, Hitler regime, Nazi regime, Stalin regimes, all. Xi Jinping regime is really gone one day. But it's how long, we don't know. This depends on the international coalition. Unfortunately, today we have seen democratic countries, and which is protects human rights, democracy, and rule of law, unfortunately, sometimes we have witnessed not coming strong voice together. Particularly China-led authoritarian country, they are united. Yes, we have witnessed. So at the United Nations, other international level, and the China and the lead authoritarian country trying to change international order. This is dangerous. This is not only dangerous for today, Uyghur, Chinese, Tibet, and some other. Also, it is dangerous entire world. Is democracy must be maintained. Democracy must be protected against the authoritarian country. So we never lost hope. I told my story also. If we lost hope, I cannot stay here. 15 years before, if I give up, maybe I will be in the jail today. I'm not in respect for human rights activists. So I'm hopeful, but we have to fight. Yeah.
Thank you. Sandra.
Thank you so much. So the thing that I like about hope is that hope does not need evidence of change. So hope is basically fuel. Even when you don't see anything, hope is just the fuel that gets you started. So definitely hope I have, no matter the situation, no matter what's there, I definitely have got hope that things will happen, and I will definitely continue this. And then the source of my hope is basically that hope is the fuel of every activist. You start any form of activism because of hope, even when you don't see anything or any signs of things that may change. And what also gives me hope is that I may be standing here, I may be the one that may be more visible as a coordinator of movements. I'm the one who gets directly attacked. But again, what makes me to stand here is I have got a base, I've got people that I'm representing. The fact that there is still that movement, that there are still people who are there, people who are rallying behind me, people that I'm leading and coordinating, that's hope that one day definitely will make it.
Thank you. And let me to take it from this, the hope that the genuine will of people to live in a better society, not to be patronized, to have the voice, to have the space to say maybe not equally in all the places because it's not equally immediately possible, but to have a space, to have basic freedoms and rights guaranteed. It's something what's probably, a fuel for all of us who are trying to do something against the authoritarian tendencies, something for more space, for more freedom, more human rights, less censorship. What I heard, it's also important, it's an interconnection and support because it's difficult to be alone. There is also a call for maybe a more strong, let's say, unity between the democratic countries because the non-democratic countries are finding the common language very quickly while we are discussing the small things and, being quite particular often and following different intellectual positions. And it's not making us stronger. In fact, it's making us and support to democracy freedoms and rights less maybe effective or less strong as it possible. So these are the few things which I think we can take together, of course, with respect to the personal courage to people and all of them. And I would like you to join me in applauding them, risk not once in their life because of principles, because of believing in freedom, because of believing in the human rights, which is a big thing, because they can live luxury, safe life and not put the nose to such a things which are usually risky. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for coming. Thank you.